Welcome everyone to this afternoon's applicant webinar on our new ESRC funding opportunity, P2R, increasing UK policymaker engagement with research. Now we've still got a lot of people joining us, so I think we'll give it one more minute to let people in from the lobby before we get going. Right, we should probably get started. Welcome everyone. My name is Saskia Smelly. I am a senior manager on this funding opportunity, P2R, increasing UK policymaker engagement with research. And we're delighted that you are able to join us today for this applicant webinar. Now, before I introduce you to the rest of the speakers this afternoon, just a brief bit of housekeeping. Please be aware that this webinar is being recorded. It will be made available on the Funding Finder page in due course. And we will also be running a Q&A session at the end of this webinar based on your pre-submitted questions. We have a lot of people joining us, a lot of attendees today, so we set up pre-submitted questions so that we can address them accurately and get through as many as we possibly can. But if there are additional questions, please feel free to email us at the same email address that you used to register today. Please also be aware that attendee details will be shared with other attendees of this webinar and potential applicants until the opportunity closes, at which point we will delete your information. This is to encourage collaboration on this funding opportunity. Now, I will shortly be handing over to my colleague, Daniel, who will be introducing you to the funding opportunity with an overview, after which we will hand over to our colleagues in the grants delivery team, to Lauren, who will talk us through the application process and assessment process, and then Audrey will be joining us at the end of the webinar for the Q&A session. For now, I hand over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Saskia. So I just have a few slides to say a bit more about the funding opportunity. There we are. So the aim of this call is to expand what we're calling policy to research infrastructure, which will facilitate direct connections between civil servants and research organisations. There's a mutual benefit here. This infrastructure will allow policymakers to build skills and their understanding and awareness of scientific research, evidence and data, and bring that directly into their work on policy. And they'll do this by engaging with research organisations in academic settings. So it will allow academics another route into engaging effectively with policymakers. We are looking to fund one award through this call. The full economic cost of the project is about 3.8 million. The total ESRC contribution is about 3 million. We are looking for this to start delivery in February 2026 and will last 3.5 years. And there's an initial 6-month scoping phase, at the end of which there will be a sort of gateway review, and that will then lead on to the sort of the final sort of 3 years of the main grant. So today is a bit more about the kind of the objectives, what we're trying to achieve with this call. We want to increase the scope and the range of P2R, policy to research activities and infrastructure in the UK. We're looking to provide an award to a partnership, a consortium of organisations that will offer strategic leadership on policymaking skills and development, and identifying the opportunities to meet what we know is a very high demand from policymakers to be able to engage with the world-class research organisations that we have in the UK. applications are looking to sort of develop a connective infrastructure that will allow public and civil servants to really build relationships with the research community, and in the process develop their kind of awareness and their skills and understanding of science and how to apply scientific insights to policy challenges. This infrastructure will support effective public policy, and again allow, you know, this absolute prize asset that we have in this country, this fantastic world-leading research organizations, bringing their knowledge and expertise to bear to shape how policymakers are able to approach and utilize evidence in addressing policy challenges. The activities that this successful applicant will ultimately, or partnership will ultimately provide, will be various. Again, very strong feedback we've had as we sort of engaged with policymakers in developing this call, and with our partners in the research community, is that in order to kind of really reach and make these opportunities as accessible as possible, there's not one single model, but actually we're looking at various points, various ways in which policymakers and the research community can engage with one another through a variety of activities. And just some considerations. So this is all in the call text, but I thought useful just to kind of go through some of the kind of key bullet points to kind of maybe pick out some of the key highlights. So first of all, this is a UK-wide P2R infrastructure. So we are looking at the whole of the UK and all the devolved administrations. We are looking to increase the range and the diversity and the access to P2R opportunities. So what we acknowledge is there are some good examples of P2R activity already taking place in the UK, but this is limited. It's not always accessible. The coverage is limited as well, both in terms of geography and discipline, but also in terms of, for those who are in the civil service and working in the public sector, the ability to access these opportunities is very variable, and we want to make it much more accessible, much easier for people working in that policy setting to kind of reach out and make connections with research organizations. So as I said, it's across central, devolved, regional, local government. We're looking at all career stages, and I mean all career stages in terms of policymakers, but also academics as well. Sustainability, I mean, this is a question that will come up in the question and answer stage at the end, but yeah, certainly this is something we envision being a long-term. We're looking to build something that's here that's going to have a long-term impact, long-term presence, but also something that's flexible and agile, that can respond to new partners, new opportunities, something that is live and dynamic. Again, as I said before, and this will come up, I think, and other points and in the Q&A as well, it's very unlikely that this will be able to be delivered by a single entity. It's going to require a partnership with a breadth of experience and expertise. It is an ESRC investment, so it's social science led, but acknowledging again, particularly when we're engaging with the world of policy, interdisciplinarity is important as well to effectively address policy challenges. I'll take these next two bullet points together, and we'll come to this a couple of times, and I know it will come up in the Q&A as well. There's a question that quite a few people asked, is that we are looking for a combination. We both want to see expertise and experience of engaging with these, delivering these P2R activities already, but also partners and research organizations who are new to P2R activities. So in terms of why we're looking for the expertise, what we don't want to do is replicate or duplicate, particularly anything that already exists. And there are some very good activities out there, and we think there's an expertise and an experience that's important to build upon. However, we are also utterly convinced that we will not be able to address the full potential of this opportunity and to address all the gaps without significantly bringing in new organizations who aren't engaged. So any applications to us will need to have the combination of those two things in strong balance with one another. Ideally, applicants would also have an understanding of skills development and talent management expertise. And then just to flag the point that I raised on the previous slide, there's a 6-month scoping phase working closely with us and our key government partners. And that 6 months, there's a gateway review. If that is passed, then the successful applicant will go on to the full 3-year grant thereafter. You'll probably notice this is becoming a bit more common on funding calls at the moment, and there's some other calls that have gone recently that are sort of having a list of what we are after, also kind of going through what we're not looking to fund, just to provide some additional guidance. We aren't looking to fund anything that is tied to a single academic discipline. We're not looking for applications that address just one policy challenge or one area of interest, because we know the demand is and interest across government is very broad. Again, these next 2 points reiterate the points I just mentioned just now. We're not looking to fund something if there's no indication that they've engaged with the existing P2R provision, but equally, we wouldn't fund something that was just an established provider looking to scale up. We are looking for this to be bringing in a meaningful way new partners, new research organisations, bringing them into this partnership bid. We're not particularly looking at public engagement through this activity. It's very much an infrastructure thing between research communities and policymaking communities. It's not R2P in the sense that we're not looking at taking researchers and putting them into policy-making contexts, such as our policy evaluators program. This is very much the other direction. We're looking for a breadth in the partnerships that apply to us. So again, applications that just about sort of 1 or 2 research organisations we'd probably regard as being a bit too limited and unlikely to kind of have that reach and that breadth that we're looking for. And again, in terms of target, we're not looking at the applications that are focused on, let's say, just UK central government. We're looking at sort of broader and devolved administrations that are particularly important. And again, also, we're not looking at applications that are focused on one very specific kind of subgroup of policymakers. Again, this reflects the idea of wanting to broaden things out, that there are, the schemes that might be available at the moment to some people in some places, but we want to expand that out. So again, make sure it's available to a breadth of career ranges in the public sector. And just say on the final point, associated studentships can't be funded as part of this application under this call. Last slide, and then I'll pass on to my colleague. So key dates: the opportunity closes on the 6th of May. It's a 2-stage process. It will go after checks. We'll go straight to panel. We'll meet in July. Those that go through the panel stage will then be invited to interview in September. We're looking for funding to commence at the beginning of February 2026. That will start the 6-month scoping and co-design phase. And then there's the 6-month gateway review. And if that all goes smoothly and to plan, then the main 3-year funding will commence. And on that, I will pass on to my colleague Lauren, also a bit more about the application process.
Thanks, Daniel. Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the application and assessment process. First, how to apply. So to apply for this funding opportunity, you will need to apply through the funding service. Apply using the button at the top of the Opportunity Funding Finder page, which will take you through to TFS. Please follow the opportunity-specific guidance that is on this webpage. Applications must be submitted by the project lead's research organisation. Once you have completed your application, it will be sent through TFS to your research office, who will then complete the submission of your application. Ensure you send the application to the research office with enough lead time for review, just in case there are any amendments that need to be made before the submission deadline, which is the 6th of May of this year. You will not be able to submit your application after this date. Please note that we cannot return applications for amendment through TFS. Once submitted, you cannot make any changes to your application. Next slide, please. So some considerations for when you apply. Please note that we will only fund one application through this funding opportunity. Please see the opportunity-specific guidance for all team member eligibility criteria. A few points to note. Project leads and co-leads must have a substantial relationship with an organisation eligible for UKRI funding. Eligible organisations include higher education providers, NHS bodies with research capacity, some public sector research establishments, and eligible independent research organisations. Please see the link provided for full details on eligible organisations. Project co-leads from UK third sector and business organisations can be included as long as they have a justified role in the project. The inclusion of project co-leads from non-UK based eligible organisations would need to be strongly justified, but co-leads from international business, third sector or government organisations are not eligible to be included in the applicant team. While applications can draw from the wider sciences, they must be within the majority of ESRC remit. Next slide, please. So the assessment process, as per UKRI policy, we will not accept uninvited resubmissions of projects that have been submitted to UKRI. A new application should involve a significant change of focus from any previous application that you have submitted to UKRI. For more information, please see ESRC's resubmissions policy. The assessment process involves a review and shortlisting process by an expert panel, which will shortlist applications for the final interview stage. Interviews will take place the week commencing the 15th of September 2025. Government partners will be involved throughout all stages of the assessment process. Full details on the assessment criteria are included in the opportunity-specific guidance and within the funding service. Next slide, please. So a quick note on the evaluation criteria. Applications will be examined for their fit to the scope and remit of the opportunity using the following evaluation areas, which includes but is not limited to the need for a compelling vision, a clear approach, a project plan for the scoping stage, a plan for the main delivery phase, evidence of an interdisciplinary social science-led team from across multiple institutions, evidence of effective collaboration between policy stakeholders and academic experts, a clear resource and cost justifications. The project team is expected to think critically about how to ensure the infrastructure sustainability and confirmation of capacity to engage with ESRC's externally commissioned evaluation for the investment. For full details, please see the evaluation areas in the opportunity-specific guidance. Next slide, please. And this is just a list of useful links. We'll upload these slides to the Fund and Finder opportunity, so you will be able to find those there in due course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Thank you very much, Daniel, for providing that overview, both of the funding opportunity and of the application process and assessment process. Now we're moving to the Q&A part of the webinar. Thank you to all those that did already submit questions. We will be now also joined by Audrey from the grants delivery team. And, I will read out the questions we've received and invite Daniel and Audrey then to answer them. So our first question here relates to how we are defining the public sector in terms of focus for our P2R activities. Essentially how we are defining policymakers, or as it's termed on the Funding Finder page, public and civil servants. The specific question was, how are public and civil servants being defined? I do research with arm's length bodies and private NGOs, which are statutory roles. Would they be eligible? And I invite Daniel to come in to respond to that question.
Okay, great. Thank you, Saskia. So in terms of sort of public and civil servants, we're sort of defining these as employees of government departments, but also broader public services. So the focus is very much on the public sector, central government, local authorities, devolved regional administrations, but we would also include arm's length bodies, non-departmental public bodies, and non-ministerial departments. So yeah, those sort of arm's length bodies would likely fit, but we wouldn't look at the target of this call being private NGOs.
Thank you, Daniel. So similarly, now moving from the beneficiaries of the P2R infrastructure to those who would be eligible to apply. Who is eligible to apply for this funding? And I invite Audrey to come in on that one.
Hi, hello everybody. Yes, so I think we've touched on this actually already in the slides, but really just confirmation that the project lead, who will be from the host lead organisation, and project co-leads must have a substantial relationship with an organisation eligible for UKRI funding. The link to this, who is eligible, the type of organisations eligible, is available on our opportunity page. I would really stress that you need to be looking at that to ensure that anybody you wish to add to this application is actually eligible. And some of the roles, there are lots of different role types. There's more guidance on those different roles, and we will provide a link here as well. It's really important that you understand who can apply, what organisations they can be from. And you've got time now that if you're in a situation where somebody is not an eligible organisation, to actually converse with the UKRI team, or get that individual's organisation or the individual to converse with the UKRI team to see whether or not they could apply for eligibility. In particular, because there may be lots of public sector research establishments that you may want to include. There is a list available, again, as I say, under that organisational eligibility list. It is quite a limited list. So again, if people feel they should be eligible, they need to be making sure they're applying. And that would be that individual within their organisation who would need to do that. Project co-leads, and I think this was discussed earlier, with a justified role on the project can be included. And please do see our UK business, third sector or government body information. There is a limitation on the amount of time and costs that can be applied for this group as project leads, co-leads. So please, again, do have a look at that. The guidance is all available. Yeah, I think I'm done there, Saskia.
Thank you very much, Audrey. We then have a related question here around eligibility. How are early career researchers, particularly those not on permanent contracts, able to get involved in this opportunity? And can they lead projects?
Yes, so we've not said that early career researchers can't lead projects. We're not trying to define which career stage should lead a project. That is really up to all applicants, who will need to agree that with their own research organisation and the applicant team as to who's suitable to be the lead on the project or project co-leads. We're not actually able to get involved in contracting agreements with research organisations. So really that again is something somebody would need to discuss with their own research organisation. The applicant team should be made up of members that demonstrate to the expert panel the team's capability to deliver the proposed infrastructure. We expect applications to bring together an interdisciplinary social science-led team from across multiple institutions with the ability to manage a large, complex programme with diverse stakeholders. Applications should also include evidence of effective collaboration between policy stakeholders and academic experts. So the lead team needs to be able to deliver that. Thanks, Saskia.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Audrey. So here we have a question. Obviously, this person has been through the funding finder text in detail and has identified the partnerships section of the text. The question is, if government stakeholders are not expected to be named as co-leads or partners on the application, who might potential co-leads and project partners be within the scope of this funding call? And I invite Daniel to come in on that one.
Cheers. Thank you. So I'm just to, excuse me, so a point we raised earlier is we are looking for applicant teams to be made up of social science-led consortium of project co-leads and partners from across multiple research organisations. And just to say, on that, it's important that they're sort of able to demonstrate this ability to bring this sort of interdisciplinary response to opportunities. Also, these 2 points that we've raised already, this important combination of both being able to representing some experience of working in this kind of P2R space, but also bringing in new organisations in as well, and ideally some expertise around kind of sort of skills, understanding how sort of skills management, skill and talent development works. It would be very useful as well. I mean, in terms of sort of the actual formal kind of who can be included, who can't, I think that the most helpful guidance is the link, the link slide that we'll share, which kind of gives you more details on kind of the inclusion of project co-leads. What we are saying at the moment, though, is that we ask you not to contact the sort of central government stakeholders who are identified on the funding finder page to endorse your application. So this will come up, I think, in a later question, particularly sort of DSIT and Go Science. They're utterly committed to work with whoever is appointed as the successful applicant to the call, but they've asked that we sort of organise that engagement after the successful applicant has been chosen. What you can do, though, is use the application to where it's appropriate to refer to your experience of working with government stakeholders. But yet again, we don't expect you to we do not expect you to name these contacts as project co-leads or partners on your application. That will happen really around, they will kind of come on board formally during the 6-month scoping phase. Having said that, you may wish to name other public bodies in your applications project partners. That is organisations that the partners, they're not receiving funding, but are coming on board, so local authorities, devolved administrations, UK Parliament's arm's length bodies, etc. But again, it's hopefully it's the core text will be useful in that respect.
Thank you, Daniel. So following on from that then, I've received a question here. Will there be a preference for academics who are already working with, you mentioned DSIT or Go Science, closely as advisors?
No. So applicants do not need to have pre-existing relationships with government departments, and specifically those government departments. Again, as one of the reasons for doing it this way is to kind of level the playing field somewhat. We will make those introductions to the successful applicant once the commissioning process is complete. What we are looking for, though, again, is this point that we expect applicant teams to include some research organisations that have a track record of working in this P2R space, as well as organisations that are new to this space. Again, it's very important to have that combination of the two. Yes, thanks.
Again, a somewhat related question. Do we expect the project lead for the investment to be an academic with relevant research expertise in policy engagement, or is this more of a strategic and coordinating role? Essentially, does this necessarily even have to be an academic project lead? Ultimately, we'd leave the composition of the delivery team to the discretion of the applicants. From our point of view, I don't think there is an absolute requirement that the project lead be an academic. And yeah, so I would just say do just check generally sort of organisational eligibility, but as long as it falls within our guidelines around organisational eligibility, it's very much at the discretion of applicants to present a team that's composed that they think is right for the opportunity. Thank you, Daniel. Now, we've identified in the funding finder text that there is a current offer in the P2R space, but that sometimes it lacks diversity, reach, scale, and coordination. We've got someone who's then asking for clarity around what success would look like in addressing these issues.
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, sort of the objectives, as we sort of shared on the slide earlier, probably sort of the top level distillation of what we're looking to achieve with this call. So our first measure of success is, are we actually able to increase the scope and range of P2R activities? We would want to see, we'd like to see new partners, new research organisations coming in who are not involved in this space becoming meaningful active partners in this space. That would be a huge measure of success for us. But also increasing the range of opportunities that are available, so that there's that sort of sense that actually there are gaps that make it always difficult for some people to access the opportunities that exist. So making these more accessible would be a key area of success for us. And to a certain extent, the applicant can identify what they see as the kind of the main gaps. So those are geographic or disciplinary or career wise. I think there's an opportunity here really to kind of provide kind of some leadership on skills development, particularly around accessing scientific expertise. Really sort of kind of building on that, again, that wealth of knowledge that's contained within in our research communities. We'd like to sort of see people sort of adopting practical and transferable skills. And again, that's both directions. We do see this very much as kind of a mutual benefit, both to the research community and to policymakers. And that ability to kind of sort of embed the skills around how to access scientific research into sort of policymaker training, so it becomes sort of this kind of default thing of understanding how to effectively engage with a breadth of research partners. And then the last point I'd say is really around this kind of idea of, sorry, there probably is a better formal term for this, but a kind of a one-stop shop. And this is again something that's kind of come through a lot in our engagement with our partners in government, is that there's often this sense of, there must be something out there, but I don't understand where, or I don't understand who, or I don't understand how do I access this opportunity? So whether it's accessing something that is already been provided, or whether it's accessing some new activities that will come out as a result of this grant, providing a kind of a very visible one-way in, where government partners can identify how to reach out for and access the research communities to organise these opportunities. That would be again a very important measure of success for us, and sort of demonstrating that those activities are having a positive impact both on policymakers but also on the participating research communities.
Thank you, Daniel. Another question here: what is envisaged as the long-term funding model for this initiative?
Well, it's a good question, because we certainly do think this is something that we want to have as a long-term goal. We know that effective knowledge exchange occurs when you have trusted relationships, and so something that it will build this connectivity between research communities and policymakers, and is around that sustainability question is really important. I don't think we have a set answer to that. I think what we'd be looking to is for the project team that is awarded the grant to really kind of think critically about actually what might the options be. So I think one of the questions that the successful applicant will be looking at is, how do we make this sustainable? How do we ensure this is a piece of infrastructure or connected infrastructures that will be around for a long time?
Thank you. So this is a related question then. What does the ESRC see as the role for existing infrastructure in this investment? What is the expected role for, or relationship specifically, with UPenn, University's Policy Engagement Network?
Yeah, again, I mean, it's one of it's that balance of these two elements we're trying to capture with this call. We're very clear that what we don't want to do is just fund a replication or duplication of things that already exist, and it is really important that we're building on some of the expertise and knowledge and experience in this space that already exists in the research sector. But it's also important that we are addressing gaps. So it's up to applicants to consider that kind of blend, how to draw in and engage with existing experience, but also how to meaningfully and substantially draw in new partners to kind of build this broader, wide-reaching infrastructure.
So a related question then, Daniel, which might just, your answer might have slightly different frame, but here someone has asked for clarity on what is meant by established academic providers in the P2R space. And does this reference specific established providers, or just each bid should include established providers?
Yeah, I think the successful application will include research organisations that have an established track record, but that has to be combined with very clear proposals for how new collaborations with currently underrepresented organisations will be brought in. So it has to tick both those boxes very clearly. Yeah, applicants should have a clear plan of how they will engage and coordinate with existing providers. But again, as I said above, the aim is not just to replicate or duplicate, or even to take something that exists and simply scale it up, because we don't think that will work. So there's a very similar about actually how will you bring in new organisations, how will you include new organisations in that initial partnership that will significantly expand the current sector offer.
So I know you touched on this a little bit earlier in your presentation, Daniel, but just perhaps we can return to it because it's come up here in a question. What are the expectations in terms of geographical distribution of the partnership? And what are the identified geographical gaps in terms of provision that you hope to address through this funding opportunity?
Yeah, so the funding, that's correct, absolutely. The funding opportunity is very much about increasing the accessibility range and the diversity of the current sort of P2R offer across the UK. And this is both in terms of geographical spread, who is able to participate in the infrastructure, who benefits from it, but also the kind of the disciplines that represented, the types of organisations and research organisations that are involved. Having said that, I think we took a very deliberate decision not to specify any specific ones in the call, because we will actually want the applicants to identify where they see as being the key gaps and where the key gaps that they think they can address.
Thank you, Daniel. And then the final question here is someone refers to our mention of existing ESRC investments, and it asks, could we specify the existing ESRC investments and centres that the call asks us to articulate how we will build on? I think is the exact wording from the funding finder page.
Yeah. No, again, we've not mandated any specific investments that you have to work with. So it's very much down to the discretion of the applicants to determine which, for example, which centres or investments of ESRCs that would be most useful to include. And again, very open to imaginative and creative suggestions around that. That's why we didn't want to kind of close things down. It's very much at the discretion of the applicants. But again, I think it's in the links, but if you kind of go to the sort of ESRC's list of areas of investment and support online, you can see what we're currently investing in, and that may well give you some ideas. And also, I mean, as Saskia, as you pointed out at the beginning of the webinar, we'll be deliberately sharing people's contacts from this webinar very much to kind of encourage and support connection and collaboration.
Thank you, Daniel. And those were the questions we received. I'd like to thank our speakers today and Audrey for jumping in there on the Q&A session. I'd also like to thank those of you who have joined us today and those who submitted questions. The questions that were submitted will form the basis of a FAQs document that we will upload to the funding finder page for this funding opportunity. And similarly, any additional questions that you have thought of while watching this webinar, feel free to email them to us and we will respond and again collate those questions in a Q&A document that will be added to the funding finder page. Similarly, the recording of today's webinar will be made available on that page. And I would invite our three speakers to say any last words, if there's anything that anyone would like to add. No, all good. Then I thank you again for attending today's webinar and wish you a lovely afternoon. Thank you.